So this the part where when I was Brazil, it made me think about Iran, U.S. They've had 7 constitutions the last 100 years. These guys have had it, right? We have the oldest constitution in the world. 193 out of 195 countries in the world have a constitution. Ours is the oldest, right? Let's go back to 2020 or 2024 when they wanted to remove him off the ballot in Colorado. 2023, 2024, you remember when it was when they were saying removing him off the ballot in Colorado. How different would it have been, and how different are we from Brazil if we didn't have the Supreme Court 6-3? What if it was 6-3 the other way around? If it was 6-3 the other way around, and say we didn't have Senate and we didn't have, so let's just kind of go exactly the situation they're in Brazil right now, because they have all 3 on the other side, right? And that's why Kassab, Gilberto, was such a powerful man, because everybody needs to give him favors. And that's what he means by whatever the big favors. I don't know how big of a favor he's going to ask Bolsonaro. But what if we were 6-3? Or do we have that fickle of a system that if the left had extremist of Supreme Court justices, they could have removed them off the ballot? Could that have been a possibility?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you remember, they tried.
This is like
they try. I mean, this is like stock standard, right? I mean, this is what's happening in Romania with the Georgescu election in terms of nullifying it. I mean, whether you remove him at the ballot so you can't vote for it, or you nullify the election after he wins. I mean, they're both the same thing. That you can't run if you're winning. I mean, it's basically the rule. And this is why it's terrifying that USAID and these other, intelligence and statecraft affiliated NGO swarms go right for the jugular, targeting the EMBs, targeting the electoral, and judicial organs around deciding elections and and election processes and election results. I hate to say it, but I have slides on all of this, but prepared if you want to see straight from the horse's mouth what that looked like, because USAID was doing the same thing, and they even some of these slides that I have here, they're getting 12 countries EMBs in a room at once. For example, in the U.S. the big EMB is the Supreme Court. They decided the result of Bush v. Gore when there was the Florida hanging ballot, hanging Chad situation. Brazil, they have a different structure. They have their STF, and then they've got their sub-court, the TSE, and so they went for the jugular on TSE. But as you'll see, but they also train the STF. In fact, if you want to pull the slide deck back up and hop on over to if you started how about slide? Here you go. What is this? What number is this? Slide 7.
Mike, why don't you just put the phone up on the desk? It looks like you're looking at something else every time you look at it. It's very inappropriate. I don't know if you see visually. It's not a good look, Mike.
Okay, all right. Next one. Okay, so you'll see here again. This is IFES again. This is the State Department. They get fully funded by the U.S. State Department. They implement the USAID's programs. The USAID partner and implementer on all things elections there, working with another judge here, Jose Gilberto Scandiucci. So now we've got Barroso, de Moraes, Scandiucci, working directly with the CEP's USAID program, which is one of the most terrifying things to do. But go to the next slide here real quick. Oh, okay. Well, actually, let's stay on that for a second. This is another example of how U.S. money continues to corrupt Brazil's democracy here. COVID. They went after Bolsonaro for questioning COVID and not distributing the vaccine. So this is Internews. Internews gets $500 million a year from U.S. taxpayers. Wow. The founder of Internews talks about how they had to constantly explain to people in foreign countries that no, we're not the CIA. We're not CIA media. We're just funded by the U.S. government, and we're directing this. So Internews is it has a network of about 6,000 different media organizations. They train 9,000 journalists around the world. They're basically a worldwide Operation Mockingbird apparatus for the U.S. State Department to be able to create a symphony of media in foreign countries.
Who runs it? Who runs it?
Well, actually, if you pull up the clip of the CEO of, just type in CEO, go to like X and just type CEO Internews advertiser, and you'll see this was very viral. Elon was livid at this, as everyone should be, because I've been talking about Internews' their huge role in internet censorship, because they use the State Department's media apparatus to push advertiser boycotts and all sorts of things. So, if you start from the beginning, it's just 28 seconds. You'll see this is the CEO of Internews right here.
Disinformation makes money, and that's one of the, we need to follow that money, and we need to work with in particularly the global advertising industry, that a lot of those dollars go to pretty bad content. And so you can work really hard on exclusion lists or inclusion lists to sort of really try to focus ad dollars and challenge the global advertising industry all around the world to focus their ad dollars towards the good news and information, the accurate and relevant news and information.
So that's the general of effectively the CIA, State Department, USAID media octopus with thousands of tentacles around the world. Now here's Brazil. Here's Internews in Brazil. Okay, because media promotes censorship in these countries, and that legitimizes the passage of anti-misinformation laws. That when judges act corrupt, people don't take to the streets because Internews media is saying that's what they should have done. In fact, Internews will put pressure on governments if they don't censor, what the State Department wants censored there. So here's what they did in COVID. They created a program in Brazil called Rooted in Trust. You see, is a global pandemic information response program countering the unprecedented scale and speed and spread of rumors and misinformation. Project focuses on, Lebanon, Mali, Colombia, Sudan, Brazil. They have a whole section on Brazil in this report as well. You look at the highlights so far. Rooted in Trust has tracked more than 19,000 rumors about the virus, 14 languages, 81 million people. In response to the unique rumors sourced from each country context, the project has produced over 130 rumor bulletins, 500 radio broadcasts, and 480 other media stories to go through a series of training opportunities, events, peer-to-peer networks, and grants. Rooted in Trust has sponsored 550 local media organizations, 350,000 people, almost 5,000 listening groups for this, all to basically ban the ability to question facts.
But again, what I would say is this is why they lost. This is why Trump won. What I'm trying to ask you, and I want to stay on this topic.
They won because Elon allowed us to talk about this. They don't have that.
And that's where I'm going.
Right.
And so where I'm going is for you. Okay, we live in the States, right? My concern was if we didn't have Supreme Court, they could have removed Trump off the ballot. If they would have done that in Colorado and a couple other states would have gone, then it would have been mayhem. Because Supreme Court, from your point of view, how different is Brazil than U.S. when it comes down to this? You may say, well, no, what you guys have in America is XYZ. We don't have this in Brazil. What is that?
I think the Supreme Court, I think, is the main problem. Because in Brazil, we have 11 judges, and I think only two of them was indicated by Bolsonaro. So all the other ones was indicated or by Dilma or Lula or Temer, who indicated Alexandre de Moraes. So the Supreme Court, I think it happens maybe in the majority countries of Latin America. As Mike said, that there is a different type of assassination. There's a different type of tyranny. Because if the president stands as a tyranny, as a dictator, maybe people will go to the streets, will take him out, and his power is over. But when you put this to a judge who says that he is fighting for democracy, he's fighting for freedom, he's fighting against this misinformation, so they sell this as a good thing. So the Supreme Court in Brazil, they decide everything. So that's the biggest problem. We can't do anything against them. We can't do. Like if I appeal, I'm going to appeal to who? If Alexandre de Moraes decides what I'm able to do.
That's what I'm saying.
Nothing.
Right.
We can't do nothing. They decide. In the COVID pandemic, they made a 24/7. All the day, the traditional media was saying that Bolsonaro was a genocide, that he was responsible for all the deaths, and we couldn't say anything, not against the COVID, but we couldn't say anything about it. We couldn't question if the mask was a great thing to use for our health. For example, there was a lot of measures that the cities and the governments did. For example, the schools were closed more than 1.5 years. People didn't go to school.
The entire country, or some places it was open?
The entire country. For example, people could go only to churches, but if there was a space between them. But there was a lot of favelas in Brazil, for example, that had a lot of parties over there, and anyone cared about it. So where I was born is a favela, and there people were working as a criminal. If someone was maybe selling something, and the police comes to there, he would be fined by that. So you couldn't work in the pandemic, not in the time schedule that the government said, okay, you can be open to 8 to 5 p.m. only. So it was a time in Brazil that I confess, me as a Brazilian, I thought that maybe the pandemic would take like 1 month, 2 months, but it took like almost 2 years. Because Brazil, we play football in the weekends. We go to churrasco. We go to the barbecue, like we live. So I thought that no, Brazil is not going to stay at home for 1 year, for 2 years, but a lot of people stayed at home. In that time, I was a city councilor in my city, Belo Horizonte, and I made a lot of denounces, a lot of appointments about COVID, and I was very perseguido. Oh yes, I was very persecuted because of that. And in the media in that time, I saw that it was very well planned to attack Bolsonaro. And now we see that a lot of things that he was saying, he was right. He always says that I didn't make any mistake about COVID, because everything that he said, it was right. People couldn't work. So how they could put food on their tables.
He was the only president that didn't take the vaccination in the world. Yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
To think about being the only president. How's your relationship with him? How are you guys together?
Yeah, I'm fine. If I call him now, I don't know what time it is in Brazil. Yeah, it's 10 o'clock. Maybe he answers me if I call him right now. Yeah, I'm in this since 2015. So I know him for a very long time, and he was he's very friendship with me. He's very kind with me. He knows who I am. He knows my heart. He knows my family. Like I have a wife, 2 kids right now. I just know this for 1 month that I'm father. We will be father again. So he knows that I'm trying to do my best. Sometimes I make mistakes. I'm only 28 years old, but he's a great guy.
You've spoken to him since he got the charges against him last week?
Yeah, we have a meeting with all the deputies, the conservative deputies, and we had a great talk.
Do you think it was weird timing how that came out, like shortly after?
But it's funny because Bolsonaro, I can say that with no problem, because he knows that he's a crazy dude. Like as a Trump, he's a crazy dude. He's very genuine. So when the news came out that he was like 38 years denounced for jail, he was like, I don't care. Like he was like, okay, I don't care. I'm fine. He knows what he got into.
Do you think that was a response to us being there, though, and giving him a platform to speak on that could reach millions of
that's
people?
awesome. Patrick said, okay, we did a podcast with an interview with Bolsonaro. He asked me, maybe, did he like it? I was like, how long was that? 3 hours. I said, okay, he definitely liked it, because he likes to speak when he likes the person. So if he stayed 3 hours with you guys, he liked it a lot. Yeah. He's a very tough guy. Of course, he's not perfect. He was the president of Brazil in a very difficult and hard time. The whole world was in a pandemic stuff. But he gives hope to Brazilians.
Wait, what's the part about now, okay? With messaging, you going around talking, everybody else going around talking, Eduardo being here talking. Who's, like, the part where I was trying to figure out with everybody that's there with Alexandre de Moraes, right? He just got off of X. We saw that. That was a few days ago. Yeah. Whether he got off of X or he was kicked out of X, I think it's the reality that he got off. Who does he fear? Like, what does Alexandre de Moraes, who's he go to sleep worried about? Who's he fearing?
I don't know. But one thing that I can be sure about that is that he doesn't have peace. I have more freedom than him. Even if he put me in jail, I have more freedom than him because he can't walk in Brazil. He can't. He can't go to an airport. He can't go to the downtown of São Paulo. He can't walk because people hate him because of what he's doing. Because Brazil, we have a lot of issues in Brazil, serious issues of criminal organizations. We have problems with education. We have economic problems. And like the judge of our Supreme Court is worried about a Bolsonaro, of a coup that never existed. So we are like, come on, do your job. Go be a constitution control court, not a political court. So people are very mad with him because he's not doing his job. He's a politician. He's a politician in charge. You know?
Mike, who do you think he fears? Because when he and X went back and forth, it didn't seem like he backed down. I mean, I think at one point, if I'm not mistaken, Elon had to fire everybody from X, and then he had to rehire some people back from X in Brazil to make sure they were in a safe place. So who does Alexandre fear?
Oh, nobody.
You're being serious.
Sure.
I agree with you. That's why I'm asking a question. Who gets in his way?
What if all that money gets pulled? That, you know, you're talking about the 12 million. There's billions here and there. What if all that money gets pulled? Because it seems like a lot of the strength they're exerting comes from that.
That needs to be done immediately.
And how much of it's left after USAID's been pulled away?
Well, it comes from a lot of places. You have these Pentagon relationships between the U.S. military and the Brazilian army. You have these State Department grants to the region, which are huge. Remember, USAID is getting folded into state. So you have the State Department funds, then you also have the active AID ones that need to be cut, not just paused, but cut. You have the Department of Labor ones. You're probably going to have Department of Energy ones. You're going to have weird, juicing of the universities, through some of these other grant organs as well. There's, all of that. Is one thing that at least creates a fair fight. Like I brought up, for example, the $12 million grant to Lula's unions, right after the 2022 election. The Solidarity Center just gave like a $7 million grant to the unions. That's tens of millions of dollars. You're capturing essentially. You're pumping up this. This is not Bolsonaro who's getting tens of millions of dollars from it. Yeah. And so that also makes people, ideology is a funny thing. Sometimes people are true believers. Most of the time, hearts and minds work is about cash. I always call it hearts and minds and cash because you're only really sort of getting the tail end of people through hearts and minds when they read the news. Usually it's downstream of their cultural leaders, their community leaders, their politicians, their, significant people of note in the country. And if you capture them with cash, you get the whole, hearts and minds behind that. And so you take the coup cash out of Brazil, I think you will see a much fairer fight. And I think that people will be more responsive to their own people because they will not have a foreign source of funds that are basically telling them, advising, what the judges should do. I mean, and again, getting back to that USAID CEPS program, they literally said in the launch event of the program that one of its purposes was to make the the partner networks feel supported by the U.S. government. So one of the reasons that you've had this, I think this perception that there's nothing to fear, from any sort of anger of Americans against what Brazil did is because they had the support of the Biden administration. The U.S. Embassy didn't do squat when that happened. You remember I posted every day, day 27, day 28. Here is what the U.S. Embassy page. Here's their Twitter account. They're posting about, disabled gymnasts in Brazil and, how we need, to support the LGBTQIA2++ rock climbers in Brazil. As a major U.S. champion was shut down and as Starlink, a major U.S. military contractor, had its assets seized, and as they began to, potentially move into the Chinese, Chinese Starlink competitor into that, this is the sort of thing we have a State Department to stop from happening, and the State Department was, their silence, combined with the fact that they have formal State Department programs to make this happen, formal USAID programs to make this happen. You have Biden and Lula colluding on it. They wanted that to happen. They were supported for that to happen. The SEPS program literally says that the plan is to get foreign countries to implement legal and regulatory measures to go after the social media companies to force accountability on them.
So question, do you think any of that money makes its way to the politicians in the Senate? This could be a question for both of you. So like senators, people in the House, could that USAID
Or their
type
wives?
Right, anything like that. Like that seems like there's a lot of potential for that. So like, could that be things that are motivating people that are in the center that seem to go whichever direction the wind's blowing?
If you follow the money, I'm sure that you're gonna find this money on these senators, in the families of the senators, of deputies, of course.
Is there a lot of guys that look like they have a lot more money than you'd expect them to have? Like we have that in our Congress. So.
Yeah, the Supreme Court, our Supreme Court judges, they have a lot of watches that it's way more than his salary. Like Patek Philippe, for example. Lula, for example, he had a lot of watches. The name in Brazil that the left did the propaganda on Lula was he's the father of the poor. He's the father of the poor. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah, it's a good catchphrase.
Yeah, but he has a huge patrimony, and that's funny because look, the socialists in Brazil, they hate U.S. They hate U.S. Lula, before the elections, he was calling Trump Nazi. So
Calling him lazy?
No, Nazi.
Nazi?
Nazi, sorry.
Oh, Nazi. Gotcha,
Nazi,
gotcha.
Nazi, yeah, no, Nazi. Nazi. So before the elections, Lula was calling Trump a Nazi. So socialists in Brazil, they hate the U.S. But now they're finding out that the taxpayers of the U.S. are sponsorship.
Yeah, subsidizing.
The socialists in Brazil. So Americans need to denounce this, like in mass.
They wouldn't be happy if that money got pulled either, because then that whole union program they have wouldn't be able to function.
Yes, of course, but that's what the socialists in the whole history do. They take the other honest people to their own money plan or their plan of power, but they are doing this with your money, like your hard worked money. So it's crazy.
Brazil, I'm so glad you're watching this. I want to tell you something here. Do you know what's the one thing tyrants or criminals in politics, in your government, you know what's the one thing they hate? Is for the people to have hope. It's been said, man and women can live 40 days without food, 4 days without water, 4 minutes without air, but only 4 seconds without hope. When I was in Brazil, we had dinner with Nicolas Ferreira. And while we're having dinner, we gave him a shirt and we took a picture together. It's called Future Looks Bright with Brazilian flag. I would love nothing more than to see thousands and thousands of people in Brazil to wear a shirt that says Future Looks Bright with your flag. Just for Brazil, we made these custom shirts for you. If you want to inject the spirit of hope in Brazil, go place 1 order, 2, 3, buy it for your peers, your family. Click on a link below or go to vtmerch.com. and sport your Future Looks Bright shirt in Brazil. Let the dictators, let the tyrants get so angry the fact that you are optimistic about the future.